Hey, everybody.
Hi, guys.
Oh, we're on.
What's up? We're on. Welcome to another SGU streaming event. We're going to try to do these every Friday at 5 o'clock as long as we can, and definitely for as long as we're in lockdown.
5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah,
I thought it was daylight. Is it daylight savings or standard time?
It's daylight savings time now.
There you go.
Yeah.
EDT then.
Yeah,
there.
EDT.
Yeah.
So, Kara, you're not in your usual abode.
No, I'm in Joshua Tree. I came to the desert for the weekend to spend some time social distancing with my best friend. She and her boyfriend have a desert house, so we actually set up some tents. They have about 5 acres, so we set up some tents on their property and building a fire and going to camp under the stars for the next couple nights.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I brought the
Fun.
telescope too, so hopefully there will be some good viewing tonight.
Sure.
Apparently they're having a mega drought out there. Did you guys read about that?
Yeah,
Really?
what's going on? Mega
We're in
drought.
a mega drought? What is that?
That's
Just
Well,
rained like 2 days
Whatever it is,
ago.
it's big.
I
It's
think early signs of mega drought, right?
Yeah, we're in the. They think that we're in the early phases of a mega drought in the western U.S. That basically means a many-year, maybe even many-decade drought.
What?
Why?
Ooh, here comes the next dust
Of course,
bowl.
it's relative rainfall. Obviously, it's still going to rain from time to time, but it's just that relative rainfall is going to be decreased, and they say that it is largely due to global warming.
Sure. Of course it is.
As expected.
No surprise there.
Climate change.
Climate change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Every time, it's funny. Every time I hear the phrase global warming now, I immediately am suddenly reminded of global warming denial, and I become furious.
Well, I think then call it climate change, because that's actually, I think, more accurate, frankly.
Yeah, but then you had climate change denial, which
This is
Well, I get
Yeah.
okay, but it just global warming. It just sounds so, I don't know, nefarious, like an evil organization. Climate change, climate denial.
You know
I can
who's
deal
not
with that a
bothered
little
by
easier.
it?
Bob's just sitting there sipping his coffee. He doesn't care about anything.
Who cares about those
the
robots?
The board
Killer.
don't carry their.
Everything Bob cares about is
Killer
food,
doesn't
right?
know what's happening in the world right now. All he cares about is spending time outside. and
Killer.
Snuggling with his mama.
Bob,
Dogs
you
are
totally
great.
made me laugh twice with that Dalek
Oh man.
thing. When we recorded the show, I laughed. When I listened back to the show, I laughed.
That's a winner.
So lots happened even
Right
in a
over
couple of
here,
days
Jay.
since we recorded the show. Although the show is not out yet.
No spoilers.
But Trump has decided to defund the World Health Organization.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great idea.
The U.S. is not the only contributor; it's the number one contributor. Do you know what the number two contributor is to the WHO?
Germany?
Is China?
The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, private donation.
And then
Oh,
the
wow.
third is the UK.
Yeah.
So really, if we pull out, we're just burdening them.
Yeah, but it's
No, it's-
significantly
it's a hit.
huge. It's a huge hit. You know,
In the middle of a global
It's a hit.
pandemic.
Right.
Always a good idea.
in the middle
Right.
of a
And what was it for?
So,
Because,
you
because
wanna
their
give-
response wasn't good. He just used a bunch of arbitrary, like, why?
Lots of things, like they're siding with China. They were withholding information. That you're
Siding
giving.
with China.
Yeah.
Kind of like classic projection, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean, siding with China?
So-
It's like they don't recognize Taiwan and that kind of stuff, I guess.
Oh, it's not
Yeah.
about how the pandemic was handled?
Yeah, it's about
Or-
it's how they handled the early part of the pandemic. He's trying to blame them.
That's the
He's
excuse.
trying to blame them
But-
for everything.
There was just a big investigation that showed that they actually handled it really well.
So I mean, listen, there were some issues with the WHO's initial response, but I think we're going to have to wait until the dust settles and there's a real investigation as to exactly
Right.
what happened.
Yeah.
And we need to use constructive criticism to improve how the WHO addresses future epidemics and pandemics. You know, we learn from these things as we go along. I wrote about this today on Neurologica because I've been highly critical of the WHO in the past because of their bias towards traditional Chinese medicine and China.
Yeah.
Not by coincidence, while all this was happening from 2006 to 2017, the director, I guess, of the WHO
Yeah.
was Chinese, and was a massive bias towards China in the WHO. So there is a layer of legitimacy there.
But you don't defund it.
Yeah, that's not the appropriate response. So, this is typical. Even when there's a kernel of legitimacy here, the reaction is blunt. It's not really well thought out. It's likely to cause more damage than good, and it's really more of a smokescreen than a surgical, political maneuver or something that's going to have a good outcome.
Well, and to me, it seems like a deflection, right? Like the idea is, oh, we don't like how you handled this. You pot, says Kettle.
Yeah, right.
Hey, yeah.
Like, ooh,
Hey, don't get it-
look at them over there.
Kara, you're starting to talk about facts and stuff. I mean, you want to get weighed down by that.
Well, I
garbage.
mean, and there are
America.
facts. I mean, we do have a record of tweets, so we know. So, for example, Trump is criticizing China, the WHO for believing China.
Political maneuver or something that's going to.
I'm hearing the audio back, Ian.
That was me.
Oh,
Says
Bob.
Bob.
Me,
Bob.
you're-
Wait,
Bob's
Bob's
Jay.
just watching TV
Bob,
while
is this-
we're
don't
live
watch
streaming.
Is this your first rodeo, Bob?
That was
Jesus.
that was me, but let's talk about Jay. I
Yeah.
want to project
Yeah,
on
let's do
Jay.
that.
because
Yeah.
Jay just sat there and didn't say anything while all
That's
that was
right.
going
We're
on.
defunding Jay.
I didn't say anything, but I
That's
thought a lot of awful things about you.
All right. So, as I was saying, but
Can't knock Steve off the horse.
at the
Yeah.
exact time that the WHO was essentially accepting China's version of events, and that's what that's the core basis of his criticism. But Trump was tweeting at that exact same time, what China's doing is wonderful, they're totally transparent. I mean, like exactly even more effusive than what
Yeah.
he's now accusing the WHO of doing. So, and again, that's like it's a tweet, it's there, it's in the record.
Well,
We
yeah,
can't
I mean-
pretend it didn't happen.
Look, the
Yeah, but
president
he will.
contradicting himself is no,
Nothing new.
sudden
Because
thing.
it's hard in his
It's-
daily
it happens
briefings.
often.
Like half the time, I'm like, I don't even understand what he's saying. He's just like
Just
rambling.
wait till he like moves off to the side, and then Dr. Fauci and
Yeah.
Dr. Birx come up and start talking. Then you
Mhm.
pay attention. That's basically what I've been
Yeah.
doing.
I posted on my Facebook page. I couldn't help it. I broke down about 2 weeks ago. I guess I had more free time, and I was reading a lot more about politics. And other than my blood pressure going up, what I found this thing where he was talking about Denver, and if you read the written word of what he's saying, it's incoherent.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And it's very scary. Like, I consider myself a moderate. I'm not a lover of either party. I have no loyalty to any sports team or political party. It's like I just don't care. Bottom line is I just want results. And
Right. Judged by the actions.
yep. And I just feel like, we're in a situation now. We have such a science denier in office, and
Mhm.
everything that it's cooking, this pot that's cooking, scares the crap out of me. It's very intimidating to see how many people out there refuse science. And, the alternate facts thing, even with Hannity recently on Fox News, the Fox News is being sued because of their mishandling of COVID-19 information. And they're saying, you can't sue us. This is free speech. It's like, wait a second, but your free speech is wrong. The information that you're giving is wrong. And if you
guys have
tricky.
seen, have you guys seen the, I love
very
this,
tricky.
the if Trump had been the captain of the Titanic,
Yes.
the
Yes.
meme. Okay, this is how it goes. 1, the iceberg is a hoax. 2, we won't hit the iceberg. 3, we barely touched the iceberg. 4,
God.
nobody could have seen the iceberg. 5, these deaths mean my plan worked. 6, I'm the best captain ever.
That's about right.
Look, for those of you who are out there who are Republicans, and who might not have as a big a problem with what Trump is doing, I just ask you, please look at this with as an unbiased, unsports team feel as you can. Try to just be as neutral as you can and look at the facts. Right now, and that's the problem. That is the problem, because we actually have multiple streams of facts now, guys. Like everybody thinks that they know what the facts are. As skeptics, I feel like I have a very good handle on what the actual facts are. But how do you argue when you don't even agree on reality?
You got to find.
You walk away.
Right. If
You
there's
walk
no
away.
common
But we
ground.
can't walk away, Bob, because the government and these elections are very important. It's very important that everyone's educated and actually can cut through the BS, and it's not happening.
Well, a pandemic is also the perfect situation to illustrate why you can't just, metaphorically walk away, because if a third of the country is denying that, we need to do social distancing, for example, that affects everybody. That's driving up the death toll that is nonpartisan, right? The virus doesn't, what did Richard Pryor say? Don't give an F where it go.
Yeah.
The virus will kill anyone.
Yeah, but if you're dealing with people that are like, I'm just talking like on social media.
Yeah.
That's when you walk away. It's
definitely pick your battles.
Choose your battles.
But it is hard when it's like the leader of one of the most, prosperous countries in the world.
Let's
you can't
shift
walk
to
away.
anti-vaxxers.
What you do is you fucking vote.
Yeah. Let's shift to
Drop the
anti-vaxxers.
F-bombs.
There was a
Wait, Steve, real quick.
Can we say that
Kevin
word?
Folta said something in the chat that was really
he did.
interesting.
He talked about whether or not the President Trump has the power to actually defund.
Well, he
or
said there's more
hold the funds
loyalty. There's more loyalty to a party than to our nation. I've never heard that before.
Well, we're
And that-
tribal. I mean, geez, our tribal brains
Wow.
tell us that. I mean, there's so many examples of tribalism in our society. It's
Yeah.
Politics is just one of many. There's so many. Kevin, also, as long as you brought up Kevin, hi, Kevin. You brought up the question about whether President Trump can block these funds. And my understanding is that, yes, he can, even though Congress, they didn't appropriate that specifically as part of the bill to the WHO. It's part of a larger pool of money, which is at the executive's discretion to, make available to the various programs that would include funding the WHO. And that's how he has the authority, apparently, to do it. I'm not a lawyer, but that's my understanding.
Unfortunately, we're sitting, this is not to get too political, but we're sitting at the end of
Too
30, 40 years of Congress basically ceding more and more power to the executive branch. That's why does the executive have as much power as they do? They really shouldn't. It's really not constitutional. But it's not just that. Yes, they take it, but also Congress is too happy to give it, because then they don't have to politically commit themselves to votes, which then could be used against them. So it actually helps them get reelected when they don't do anything. And they just put everything off on the executive, who's happy to take all the power. So that's been the trend for 40 years. And here we are, like, does he have the authority to do that? Apparently he does. Why? Because Congress just gave it to him, like tariffs. Why does the president have the ability to unilaterally put tariffs on country? Because Congress gave him that power, 20 years ago or so, when nobody was looking, nobody cared about those kind of, political details. But now
they're weapons.
Now they're weapons. Absolutely. They're biting us in the ass. Anyway,
Right, real
that's
quick, real
American inside politics.
Yeah, Evan.
right. Yeah, we bored
Hey,
them.
Evan.
Oh, yes. Hi.
Evan, raise your hand. Adam Savage, raise your hand. All right. Evan's here. Adam Savage is not here. Let's put that to rest.
Yeah, geez whiz.
Put that to rest right now.
Yeah,
You know,
that's pretty bad.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Before you move on to vaccine denial, I was wondering because somebody mentioned this in the chat, and I heard it from my friend Jason as well. He said, when you go out to the desert this weekend, just be careful because some people might get pissy about you leaving town because that's they see that as like breaching social distancing protocol.
only if
And I
you're
guess I'm
going
a
to-
little confused about why people don't want people to do things like that because I'm not going to any stores. I don't have to get gas because my car is electric, so it's
Yeah.
charged, and then I'm charging on my friend's property. Why is it that people think that traveling to a different home or something like that?
Because they're not thinking it through very carefully. I mean, if you're
is a-
going to the desert and not going into contact with anybody,
Yeah, I guess
there's
that's
no
the
risk
difference.
there.
I think it's about people are worried that if city people go into they overwhelm the resources in these outlying areas. But if you're not utilizing the resources, then
So there was concern early on. A lot of this is just like a little bit of again talk about tribalism. Just like stay out of my neighborhood. Is the
Gotcha.
idea that the pandemic is really a city problem, and people who are in more rural areas don't want those city folks fleeing the high density areas and bringing the virus with them to their small communities.
Yeah.
But it's really not isolated to cities. So it's kind of based on a false premise to begin with. But it is true that we shouldn't be just moving around
Sure.
too much. You know what I mean? But,
Sure.
if you're like, don't be in one location, then go to another location and engage with a lot of people,
Yeah.
Um,
But if you're social distancing the same,
yeah.
if
Right.
anything, I'm seeing fewer people here because at least at home, I'm still having groceries delivered and I'm having
Yeah.
food delivered periodically. So, but here I'm just like camping by a fire
Right.
with food that I brought from home,
Right.
just to be clear.
Yeah, so
Cool.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So you can still obey social distancing and make sort of limited changes in venue as long as
Sure. And the truth is, I think for our mental health, sometimes you just got to do stuff
Yeah.
like this periodically. Like I'm not going into Joshua Tree. I should have made that clear too. I'm not going into the park. The parks are closed. All the national parks are closed in the U.S. right now. My friend who lives in the outlying area of Joshua Tree has many acres, and so I'm camping on her property.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, can we talk about anti-vaxxers? I would
Yeah.
really love to.
Yeah.
hear
So
more.
anyway, well, just because there was a recent study which adds one tiny little
Segue.
sliver to our, understanding of how is it possible that people can deny the most effective, cost-effective healthcare intervention that humanity has ever developed in the middle of a pandemic, when like the one thing that everyone pretty much agrees the one thing that's really going to put an end to this pandemic is if we could develop a vaccine. And yet there are people out there who think that vaccines are evil, they don't work, blah, blah, blah. So there was a recent study which addressed one tiny part of this, and that the hypothesis is that anti-vaxxers overestimate risk. And so they clearly do overestimate the risk of vaccines, right? If you ask, you survey people on their vaccine attitudes, and then you ask them like, what's the likelihood of getting autism, from vaccines or whatever. Obviously, people who hold anti-vaccine attitudes overestimate the risk of side effects from vaccines. But then they asked them non-vaccine related risks, and they also was a correlation in terms of how much they overestimated risk in general. So then the question becomes, what's the chicken and the egg here? And it's usually always both. But it's like, does being embedded in the information ecosystem of the anti-vaccine movement focus your attention inordinately on risk? Or is it that people who just inherently focus more on risk are more likely to fall into the anti-vaccine movement? Because it's largely based on fear-mongering about risk. That's sort of the core point.
Tracks a certain personality? Is that kind of what we're getting?
Yeah. So, and we don't have information on that. It's the same thing about conspiracy thinking. We know that
Right.
anti-vaxxers are more likely to be conspiracy theorists, but which comes first? Do they become a conspiracy theorist because they're living in the anti-vax ecosystem, or do conspiracy theorists fall into the anti-vaccine movement? And the answer is both. Both of those things are happening. And I suspect it's the same with this other aspect, the risk over assessment, is probably the same as well. It certainly would attract people who are already predisposed to overvaluing risk, but then it also reinforces those tendencies, regardless of what your baseline was. But none of that changes the fact that at their core, they are conspiracy theorists, science deniers, And we talked previously on the show, I don't know how long ago it was, but you guys remember about the super Dunning-Kruger, the super DK, where anti-vaxxers are one of the two identified group, anti-GMO being the other one, where the less people know, actually only at the extreme end, the people who were anti-vaccine knew the least about vaccines and thought they knew the most.
Woohoo!
Yeah, these are
people
the
who
Dunning-Kruger poster
who
children.
are
That's a
anti-GMO
perfecta.
knew the least about genetic modification, but think they know the most.
Mm-hmm.
And even to the point where they think they know more than the experts. Right? That's how delusional they are.
That kills me, man.
And that includes like homeopaths and creationists and all of those.
And these were like similar people to, wasn't there a Gallup poll where people were asked about basic biological literacy and they were like, well, GMOs have genes.
Yeah.
Normal food doesn't have genes.
Doesn't have genes, yeah.
Ooh.
Like GMO tomatoes would have genes in them and regular tomatoes don't have genes.
By the way, have you guys seen The Gene? It's a new PBS 3-part series by Siddhartha Mukherjee.
Nope.
Who wrote Cancer, the Emperor of All Maladies, and then he also did a whole series, I think a book on the gene. It's a beautiful, it goes back to how we first discovered DNA to biotechnology. It works through looking at genetic illnesses and what some of the ethical issues are around it. I haven't even gotten to CRISPR yet because we're still in episode 1, but recommend it if you guys want a really good primer on on biotech or just basic biology, like what the cell does. Primer, whatever.
Which one of us was going to say it, Bob, in half a second?
I say primer. Deal with it.
I hear both. I hear both about equally.
I bet
primer is what you use when you paint something. You have to put your All right. Should we take questions? Do you guys have any other news items you want to chat about?
Yep. Yeah, Ian's ready for questions.
Oh, someone liked my flannel. Thank you very much.
I hear Ian faintly.
Ian,
talking.
we kind of heard that, Ian.
We can't hear you now, Ian.
Now I'm dead.
Well, you're fading in.
You
and
weren't
out.
dead when you said "now I'm dead," but
What?
no, you're definitely still there. Hi, Ian.
Are you struggling with it?
No, it's fine. Right?
Okay.
I think he might be on the phone. Or talking to somebody else. Do you guys want to see my lovely
Knitting project?
No.
Knitting,
Sweatshirt that says
knitting.
National parks are for lovers.
Another word ruined forever.
You guys see
that's
that?
I like that. I like
Some
that.
of you have seen this.
I was wearing it a second ago.
Oops.
Oh, hello.
Sorry, that should be
Guía
good now.
del
Yes, now we hear you.
Universo
Okay,
para
sorry.
escépticos. I love it.
Bueno.
Translation. Muy bueno.
Muy bueno.
So
Grande.
good. Grande.
Okay, let's take some questions.
Yes, question 1.
There were a couple questions about COVID. So they heard people were getting reinfected. Is that true?
I haven't heard any confirmation of that, of people who've had it, got over it, and then got infected again.
Are they talking about China or U.S.? Did they mention where?
My neighbor said the same thing the other day to me. She was like, I heard people are getting reinfected.
I read something about Wuhan, like they opened, but now there's partial shutdowns again in the city. So I don't know if that's
well, no, that's going to keep
their hand?
happening.
Okay.
That's a new wave of infections. But I think what you're asking, Ian, right, is about if a person who has built up antibodies can then catch it again.
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah, I don't.
Oh, that.
We don't know yet.
I don't think we know yet.
So on that side, what about, what was it, opening up for businesses on May 1st, I think is the goal, right?
Well, depends where you are.
It's
It's a
first
three-stage.
not gonna happen.
It's a three-stage
batshit.
rollout.
It's some people's goals.
That's
Trump
too
announced
early.
it. Yeah, but I mean, we're going to do a rollout. It'll be a metered, it'll be a slow progression of changing the rules as time goes on.
Yeah.
But they
But we
did put
But
it.
it
Can't
depends
do
on
it
where
until we
you
have
are,
antibody
too.
tests. Also, I just don't see how it is reasonable and responsible to start allowing people to go back into public spaces where they're within these close quarters if they haven't yet been tested to see if they have
Well, do they have an
developed
estimate as
immunity.
to how long the tests are going to take for that to happen? I mean,
Well,
we're
none of them
talking-
are FDA approved yet, but there are a ton of tests that are in production already.
right in production. But what are we talking? Are we talking 30 days or 200 days? I mean, because that's a
I think that's a matter of will. I don't think it's a function of. It's not like a vaccine.
people
It's
aren't
not a
going to
function
last
of the fact that
200
we don't-
days. I can tell
Yeah,
you
I don't
that.
think
They're
it's
just
it's not an issue
going
of not
to.
having the technology. It's an issue
Right.
of are we going to pay for it and fast track it.
Right.
All right, so I looked up really quickly what the reinfection thing is all about, and so there are cases, maybe 10 to 14% of patients who were treated, tested negative, and then tested positive again. And the question is,
False
did they
negatives?
That's false positive. or false
reacquire?
negatives, yeah.
Did they no? Well, they think that the PCR test is just picking up just viral detritus from the initial
Gotcha.
infection, and so the positive test is not a second infection. It's just the remnants of the initial infection.
And their
But-
symptoms are either delayed or they have like a cold on top of it.
Yeah, but there was one case at least of a person who was released from the hospital, then tested positive, and then died from a COVID-19 syndrome.
Oh, so they didn't really recover.
Yeah, maybe. So we don't know is the bottom
Yeah.
line.
Because what we do know about COVID is that the time span is long.
Yeah, it can't be.
Like some people are sick for 3-4 weeks.
Oh yeah.
COVID, so
And
it's
sometimes
not
they have
like
a-
the flu.
They have a mild illness for 2 weeks and then they get hammered, with the real severe illness.
So it seems, I mean, obviously we won't know until we have more data, but it does seem like it's more likely that that was the same infection than the.
That's what the experts
was
think
recovering.
now. So yes, some people are testing positive, negative, than positive, but the experts think it's probably has more to do with just the testing and not an actual reinfection. So the rates of that happening is like 10%, something around there. But we can't take for granted at this point in time that if you've been infected and recovered, that you're completely immune. That we cannot take for granted either. So that's something we need to take into consideration when we loosen up the lockdown.
And can you still be a carrier and a vector?
No,
Or that's not
once,
the case?
once you've basically, you've over the fever and you're getting better, you shouldn't be contagious anymore.
And you're not shedding.
Steve,
Okay.
somebody asked, why do the swabs have to go all the way into the back of your nasal cavity to test for COVID?
Yeah,
no,
people are saying it's pretty painful.
I had the nasal swab. It was very unpleasant. They go all the way back. They're like,
Hey,
Nasal
I mean,
intubation.
How far in can you go?
it's like a kick in
really
the crotch.
far, really far.
But it's about.
But it's that itchy, irritating, makes you want to sneeze part of the inner nose. You know what I mean?
It's not natural.
Snot.
Finger doesn't even
I
fit
think
up there.
It's
not.
just more. You're just more likely to get virus if you go deep.
You sure?
Yeah, it's probably just guaranteeing that they're actually getting a good sample.
Yeah, if it's not there, then you're probably
Yeah.
not anywhere.
It is
So
deeper than your finger can go. Yes.
We have, I forgot if we mentioned
Not
this
all
on the
fingers
show.
are the same. Okay.
It might be, we might have talked
But that's
about
also not the only test, right? It's one of the ways that
Yeah.
people are testing
Yeah.
is with nasal swabs. So
Right.
there are there cheek swab tests?
I don't know if they're doing cheek swabs, nasal swabs.
Are there
definitely
blood
more
tests?
sensitive.
Where's that?
Yeah, you can do a
where's the
blood test.
CRISPR test? I heard something about the CRISPR test. 40
There-
minutes.
Does it test your
40-minute
CRISPRs?
test.
That's theoretically possible as well.
Theoretically possible.
They're working on that, aren't they?
Cool.
But readily available? No.
What
So
you drinking,
what's-
Bob? Is
so
that
what's the
coffee?
point?
Of course.
What you drinking, Evan? Is that coffee too?
Oh, it's my version of coffee. It's called Diet Coke because I don't drink coffee.
Steve, somebody said it looked like you were drinking booze.
That's in a glass. It's iced tea.
Iced tea.
Yeah, Louis the 14th iced tea.
iced tea with some great alcohol in it.
Yeah. 2 fingers, right? 2 fingers. 2 fingers.
Somebody took a screenshot of Steve doing one of his skeptical consult videos.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because Steve just leaves like that for a nanosecond, but that's the screenshot. And then I wrote a comment on it and I said, drunk as usual.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Anybody
From
who's-
video, you can always get
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
when I'm blinking or something.
Right. You get
Anybody
to-
who's
That's
ever
what-
worked in production knows it is very hard to get a still where you
Oh,
don't
yeah.
look like, you know.
But I love
challenged
how
at all.
the press it always makes me laugh whenever you see any politician being quoted, especially if it's from the opposite side.
Yeah, they choose the worst picture.
The worst picture, but they'll
Hey,
go
that
through
goes
every
back. That's
frame until-
old. Come on, that's been
Yeah.
happening for decades.
I know.
Oh
I
my
just
gosh.
find it very funny because you'll just see these ridiculous expressions that, if you're watching them, you never see that. It's just a nanosecond that it happened on their face. Let's take another question. Ian, do you have anything?
Yeah. People want to know if there's any psychics that you've seen claim that they predicted the pandemic.
Well, the one people were talking about was Sylvia Brown's
Yeah.
prediction
Yeah.
from 12 years ago in a book
From
about
12 years ago.
something flu-like or in the year 2020.
Oh, please. Like the
pneumonia,
flu?
like or pneumonia symptoms or something. It's very vague. It could have meant anything.
Yeah.
I think
Did any of
because
us
she got the
predict it?
year, because it's a nice round year and psychics like round numbers.
Well, I mean, even if she legitimately had that written down in her book, you have to go by how many predictions was she making and how many were actually
Yeah.
correct.
Oh,
I
in
mean,
her
thousands.
lifetime. Oh,
they're bound to get something right.
thousands.
Yeah.
Yeah, she predicted
And that-
something that
that's the
everyone
shotgun.
said was inevitable. There's going to be a pandemic. Even if she got the year, what are the odds? That she got one. 5%, 10%. How many different predictions?
Yeah, did she predict SARS? Did she predict MERS? Did she?
You know who else predicted this? Obama.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys see that speech?
No.
Yeah, I think I saw a snippet from
Didn't
that.
see it.
What's
We
the
got to
main
be ready
quote?
for it. It's going to happen.
A lot of
Yeah.
people said that. I think the Simpsons have predicted more things than anybody else.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's Simpsons.
Simpsons.
So it
And then
would
probably
be,
South Park after The Simpsons. But Simpsons did
Mm-hmm.
do it first.
They always do things.
I'm just pissed I didn't
You know-
predict it on our show a few months ago.
I was thinking
Exactly.
about.
I was
the
just looking at
Simpsons.
my predictions. It's not.
So when the Simpsons, their 31st year, 32nd year, and
That's
how many
nuts.
episodes
That's
and how many the number of references in any given episode is numerous, almost too numerous
Yeah.
to count.
It's
I'm
packed.
still learning
It's
things
packed.
from like episode, season 5 that I've never seen before. When you have that much of a data set,
Yeah.
you're going to get a bunch of stuff
yeah.
that are predictions that will definitely come true.
The one that made me laugh.
volume alone is
The one where what's her face was looking at Trump with an angry face. What was
Right.
I forgot her name.
Melania,
his wife.
No, the girl from
Ivanka,
Lisa.
Oh,
Lisa.
No, Carrie. I think I forgot
Greta?
her name. Greta.
Wink
Yeah, so
Martindale.
Greta.
Greta Thunberg,
is looking
yeah.
at Trump
We're back
with
into
this really
reality.
angry
Okay.
face, and there was Lisa Simpson did this. It was the same exact thing as her looking at Trump. And I'm like, oh my god, that was
Greta
so-
saw the episode. No
Yeah.
big deal.
There was actually
She made the most
there
of the
was an-
moment.
There was an episode of South Park, I believe, called "Simpsons Did It."
yeah.
Where they,
Yeah.
they referred to the fact that there's
did
nothing
everything.
that the Simpsons hadn't already done that they could do that's new.
When your whole thing is a satire of reality and you're taking off of actual events and things that happen and you're packing them in like multiple themes in a matter of mere seconds on any episode, and you have 31 years worth of material, you're going to get a lot of hits.
I'd like to ask you guys. So we're in this mofo now for what, 5 weeks?
Yeah, something like that.
What has changed? Like, what's the thing that's starting to get to you now that this much time has been spent at home? Now, Steve, I know you're on a more regular schedule.
Yeah.
But
am too.
anybody let me know. I have a big one that's really bothering me, but I'd like to hear what you guys have to say.
Just the worst thing is just not being able to see everybody.
Yeah.
To get together with people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah,
Bob?
I've been seeing my mother in 5 weeks, and she doesn't hear well enough to really do well over digital communication.
Does she do Zoom? No?
Yeah, but she doesn't hear.
She did okay today on Google Hangout with the volume up on my laptop. So that might be better than a phone. I think that's better than a phone for her.
Text her while you Zoom.
For me, let me think. I think the food's a little monotonous. Like, what am I going to have for lunch today? I don't want
Really?
soup
Oh,
again.
food's the best part for
I
me.
love soup.
Yeah,
I
me
could
too.
eat soup every day.
I mean, I want some damn drunken noodles. I want some
Make them.
Indian.
That's the thing. I'm
What?
making stuff
All
left
you,
and
Bob.
right.
Yeah.
Bob,
I'm
YouTube
eating better
is
than I ever
your
was.
friend. drunken
I don't have
noodles
the
on
ingredients
YouTube.
or the skill to make
50
the drunken
But
noodles
also-
No,
that I
that's
love.
not. No, the appropriate answer for you, because what you just said is a lie. Because everybody on the planet can cook. I ain't got time for that.
How could you say that during a pandemic?
Also,
I know,
Bob,
right?
where do you usually buy them from?
About a mile down the road.
So
Yeah.
order
Okay, you
them
don't have
and go
to
pick them
yell.
up.
I'm wary of anybody touching my food that goes in my body. Right
I'm
now.
not. I think that
Okay.
the restaurant industry needs us right now. And so
Yeah.
if you're in a
Yeah,
place where
we should all have these.
you can afford to,
It's
and
a-
you
it's a-
can.
I know. I just took advantage of what is it? One of the delivery services and went to
Like Grubhub
Arby's
or something.
Yeah, and I went to and had somebody deliver Arby's, but that's like a treat for me. I don't want to
Yeah.
do that more than
Yeah.
once a week.
But that's the thing. You
Especially with-
can still do. If you
Right
could do
now.
it before, you can still do it now. And the truth of the matter is, I don't think, or at least I've not come across any legitimate, reliable news articles that show any sort of COVID transmission in the food supply. Like
Mhm.
most of
I
the
don't
things
think
that you
so,
read
yeah.
say there's no real risk there, and so it's like
Well,
I'd
I mean,
rather
So when
not
I
be
ordered the
paranoid.
bat soup from the Chinese restaurant, I can eat that.
Well, I went
Too
to
soon. Sorry, too soon.
so we
I
went to-
actually did just interview a bat researcher who's like, he's like dedicated his whole life to bats. I haven't aired it yet on Talk
My
Dirty, but
poor bats. I'm so
he is
I feel
very
so
upset
bad for
about
them.
how bats get the bad rap as disease,
Mhm.
and he thinks it's actually not based on very legitimate science. It's just like virologists realized early on how easy it is to test these animals, and we find a lot of
Oh.
viruses in them, just like we would find a lot of viruses in a lot of different
So what's the light under the lamppost
sort
scenario?
of. And
wow.
he feels very strongly that yes, okay, there are coronaviruses in bats, but there are coronaviruses in so many animals.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is that there are fewer examples of bat to human transmission than the actual spillover events. And really what we should be more concerned about are the spillover events, whether it's the ape to the human transmission, the farm animal to human transmission, because oftentimes when we talk about these reservoirs, they're perfectly safe and healthy, existing in the wild as carriers of these things, but they're not usually the ones that are spilling them over to us. And there's no real good confirmation that bats had anything to do with Ebola, the bats had anything to do with COVID-19, we still haven't been able to say it. We just think it's our best guess.
So,
So-
since we're back to that, there's
They
a
candid
last couple of days, a hypothesis has been getting play that that COVID-19, the SARS-CoV-2 emerged from a lab in Wuhan. Not that it was engineered, but
Yeah,
that
what's
it was
going on with this?
accidental contamination. So here's the short version.
I read
of
that
it.
today.
So first of all, it's plausible. There is a lab that does study coronavirus in Wuhan, and the idea is that an employee was accidentally contaminated, and then he spread it outside the lab. Not that they created it; they were just studying it. But
To look for an AIDS vaccine? Is that what
I didn't hear that
doing?
connection.
I heard
don't
that's what I read today, but
Well, there is.
I sent
there
you a
was
link on it, Steve, so you could check it.
There was a Wuhan lab. It was part of our pandemic response,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
This
yeah.
is the pandemic response that was shut down
Yeah.
by the current administration. It happened to be in Wuhan, one of the satellite labs that we
Yeah.
were funding.
But I don't know if it was that lab, but it was definitely a virology lab in Wuhan. But the evidence that that's what actually happened is extremely circumstantial. There's no direct evidence.
Right.
The evidence amounts to the fact that, well, there is a virology lab in Wuhan. Maybe it came from there. Two was that, the other big, again, circumstantial piece of evidence is that, well, China really clamped down on information about the origin of the virus and the early epidemic when it was limited to Wuhan. And some people think that was an overreaction, but maybe what might explain that was that they know that it was released from a lab and not emerged spontaneously from the markets or from the wild or whatever. But again, that's the kind of evidence we have. It's it's completely circumstantial,
But not
very
implausible.
compelling.
But not
It's
implausible.
but not implausible. But
It's not.
It
It's
wouldn't
much-
surprise me if that's what at the end of the day if that turns out to
Right.
be the answer. Sure,
Yeah,
okay.
it's
And
much
that's
more-
reasonable skepticism.
It's
Yeah.
much more plausible than it was human engineered because
Yeah.
like I said on
We
the
talked
show
about the
a few
receptors.
weeks ago.
or the
yeah,
hooks
it's
or
clearly
something.
not it's not human engineered,
Yeah.
but an escape like that Sure. I mean, that's much more plausible.
But it's also
but
very
the evidence
plausible that there was a
isn't solid.
spillover event between
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
wild caught animal and utilized for food or medicine. And this is, and even a farmed animal, like a domesticate utilized for food or medicine, this is where we often do see the spillover events that, they're usually swine flus and bird flus. And, these are organisms that we're keeping in close quarters that we are, these things kind of like make it quite easy for disease to spread. And then when humans are existing amongst these animals, that's how spillover events happen.
One of the scariest things is the things we don't know about that exist, and we really don't have an idea what they're doing in the laboratories and things. I find that a scary thing.
Oh, really? I think it's scarier to think about it doesn't scare me at all, but more interesting to think about all of the viruses and bacteria that we don't know about that exist in the wild as we speak. I mean, there's like more bacteria that can make you sick in the soil.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's also not going around killing millions of people.
Yeah,
but it could. That's the thing. It could. It's one spillover event.
Yeah, Kara's right. In my opinion, I agree. I'm more worried about spillover from animal to human than, an accidental lab release. Think about HIV. HIV was a spillover from
totally.
What was it from? Monkeys, apes.
Yeah,
apes or monkeys.
But then again, there was probably the lower reservoirs.
Primates. Yeah, from primates to humans. And now we take it for granted, now we're living with this enduring pandemic of a very serious infection. The COVID-19 is actually a blip compared to HIV. It's just that it's all compressed. And then, but it could become like another flu-like endemic illness that we just have to live with and we take for granted. But I'm worried that there's another HIV out there, that's going to hit, and then suddenly
it's just a matter of time. Or another Ebola that's more, because like my concern is, okay, so COVID-19 is super infectious. It's also kind of deadly, but we haven't yet had the super infectious and super deadly. Usually it's one or the other, right? If it's too deadly, it actually cycles through the population really quickly, and then we're actually like on the other side of it. So the kind of the perfect combination of very infectious, deadly, but like spontaneously deadly, where like some people die and some don't. I mean, there's a lot of parameters that could be so that make the next great pandemic really scary.
But the next real great pandemic that's super infectious and super deadly, I think, will be human engineered. I mean, in 20 years,
really?
In 20 years, how trivially easy will it be to engineer something like that? It will.
Just because you can doesn't mean that it's going to happen, though. I mean,
depends who does it.
It still
but we also have nuclear weapons, and we knew how to make them, and that
scares the hell out of a lot of people.
It's a real existential threat, but so far we've been smart for the most part with it.
But so the wrinkle,
I would assume.
I think we should absolutely assume that that's going to happen.
But we should be prepared.
We should be prepared, but we shouldn't live in fear of it.
Because you can't.
Not now, but in 20 years.
But you're talking about a doomsday device. It's actually very different than detonating a nuclear weapon somewhere else, because with a biologically engineered disease, it will come back to you. You are not safe from it.
That's true, but unless it's engineered with specific genomic specificities, such that only certain subpopulations get it, and you're immune. And I tell you, if I'm going to be making that stuff, I'm going to make myself immune to it. I mean, hello, that's like 101.
Yeah, but once it's out there in the wild, it's going to mutate. You can't guarantee that.
Right. So that's why we need to do the research and get the tools now to do general type of vaccine creation, to adapt very fast, like using supercomputers and using bio supercomputers to quickly come up and then just send it to the to your 3D bio printers all over the world. Here's the cure, here's the vaccine. Our supercomputer put this up, made this in a few days. I mean, we got to get ready.
You mean like happens in the movies?
But Bob, I think this is why. I think this is why you'd also really, really like this documentary series that I was just talking about, The Gene, because it gives you, because of the way that it talks about things happening, and it focuses on Huntington's a lot, which, as we know, is like a really good disease to focus on when you're learning, first learning about how genetic genetics works. It shows kind of like there's a researcher who has Huntington's and she didn't know whether or not she was going to get it. And she was like, I'm tired of waiting. I know my parents have, or, my mother has it. I don't know if I'm going to be, I'm 50-50. So I want to figure this out. But there was no marker for it yet. And so she was actually like, I'm going to look at the genome and try and find this out. I think this was early, like it was like the 50s or 60s. And it was crazy to think that they were like, at the time, we only had markers for 10 things.
Oh my God.
We only knew how to find 10 things within the genome. Like, it was amazing. And so it shows how quickly the advancements have happened. And it really does. Even if you know this stuff, when you rewatch it, it blows your mind how much new information we have just exponentially when it comes to understanding nucleic acids and kind of their role.
So Ian, can we have the next question?
Someone was wondering if Steve's surviving on the bananas in the basement.
It's a good thing he's not. Yeah, right. It's a good thing.
I will take the pleasure of answering that question. Fuck the motherfucking bananas. I hate those bananas. The banana plants are gone. They're gone because they turned into cat toilets. Oh. The cats would go down there and dig out, do all sorts of trickery and whatnot, and then they would go to the bathroom in there.
I wonder why. Why would cats be attracted to banana plants specifically?
Because I think they looked at them like gigantic litter boxes.
Yeah,
but why? Oh, just because there's no other.
Because of the mulch on top. They just
look. Steve put in an amazing effort, a decade-long effort. We just don't have enough sunlight and enough summertime weather for the bananas to work. Yeah. And then the grow lights really weren't working, and it just turned into like this profound mess of a hobby. That
Steve, try it again.
Yeah, I might. I'll take another whack.
Yeah, do it.
The cats are now banned from the basement, and
but now it's called a studio. And
I know now it's our studio.
I don't care about success. I just want more content from Jay and Steve about it. That's my motivation.
No, but I would have loved to have eaten a.
I think I need like I need a heated greenhouse. If
that'd be
that
great.
would work.
Let's do it
outside. Yeah.
Let's do it. And we can do a live stream from the greenhouse, a special SGU event.
I'm all for it. I mean, picking a homegrown banana that you've never had.
Jay, I could grow Michelle and
I know
ice
I
cream
want
bananas and pineapple.
Reintroduce the cabin.
But Steve, I had to take the crack pipe out of your hand and put it down for you, right? Because I love you, because I'm your brother, and I'm here for that.
All right, guys,
the cats did that.
A lot of people are asking, Bob, take something from your desk and put it in front. So I'm doing it. Actually, nobody asked that. I'm just doing it.
Yeah, I was
anyway.
I want to see that.
I was saying maybe in the first minute.
That's next gen.
This is from Franklin Mint. This is like probably 30 years old.
I remember.
Separate the saucer. Separate the saucer.
The Enterprise D. They came out with a lot of the major ships, and one of the hallmarks of this company was that they would have one area that was like in gold. And so this was the array here was in gold.
Clever.
And it's just a really nice, pewter, solid, heavy Enterprise D.
No separation.
Always on my desk. No separation.
My least favorite Enterprise.
No captain's yacht. Oh, it's your least favorite? Interesting.
It's very nostalgic, but yeah, the aesthetics isn't as my favorite like it used to be. It used to be there's so many other designs that I prefer now than the Enterprise D. Like the Enterprise F, which is really sleek.
That had the third nacelle. Is that the one that had the third nacelle?
Because no. This is it's not. It wasn't in any of the movies. I don't think but it's kind of canon because it was in some of the books and some of the games, I think. But the F was just like super sleek and gorgeous. One of my favorites.
I like the Aegis class from a video game. Is my favorite version of the Enterprise.
There's so many great. To me, it's one of the best templates for a spaceship. When you've got the nacelles in the back, the primary hull, secondary hull, there's so many variations on that shape that I've seen. Look at Eagle Moss. There's so many. It's like, oh my God, it's a distasteful look on her face. But it's just endless. The variety is just endless and so cool. And
Kara, which is your favorite
new stuff?
Yeah, Kara.
Yeah, tell us.
Of all the Enterprises, probably the space shuttle one.
Hey,
nice.
Very good.
Touche. Back to Fantasy Land.
That was so good. That was three.
Don't even. Yeah, and then there's also the J. You guys have seen the J, right?
Yeah, I know. Bob is popping sci-fi boners for the J.
The J. This one.
Wasn't that a character from a Gary Larson cartoon?
This was shown.
Gary Trudeau.
This was shown on the series Enterprise, just like very, very briefly. This is from like the 28th century. And
28th
this is
century.
the ship. You want to, you want a ship. This is 2 miles long. If you took all the Enterprises, they would fit from here to here. They would all fit in there. Like 6 ships would fit all in here. This thing is like 2 miles long. It goes to other galaxies. It's such a cool ship. And when I first saw it, I was like, that design is really kind of bizarre, but I really kind of love it. It's just such a cool little design. Whatever. I'll stop now.
Thank you.
Live
Love you,
riffing is
Bob.
the best. Yes, I agree.
Bob, you're adorable.
I have my passions.
Another question, please.
I saw someone ask if there's something like Soylent that you could survive solely on.
Soylent Green?
Yeah.
Well, we watched The Martian. Didn't he survive on potatoes with like some multivitamins?
Potatoes are actually almost a complete food. They
need some
lacking,
protein, right?
Yeah, protein is like the one thing that they're lacking.
So we need to genetically modify a potato to include
There, believe me,
protein.
people were
That's
working on
doable.
it. If you have
Come
you can
on.
make potatoes with protein, it's like
Feed
that
the
could be-
world.
Yeah, but even as it is, it's a very good staple crop. But yeah, you can make, and again, I don't know. I hate the fact that people think of Soylent when they think of that. When there's many other products predating Soylent that are already out there, where like Ensure, Boost, Carnation Instant Breakfast, whatever. These are all complete meal replacement shakes or whatever. And yeah, you can survive on that by definition. They're made to contain everything that you need to be a complete.
And they actually taste
complete-
pretty good.
Yeah,
Soylent
nutrition.
tastes good though. I've been,
Potatoes. I like
I've
Oh,
been-
I don't like Soylent.
yeah, I like it. I've been on it.
Really?
for a
Do you
while,
sweeten
yeah.
it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I put Splenda in it to sweeten
Yeah.
it. I don't put sugar in there, but
But that's why I like Ensure, because Ensure like
Yeah.
is flavored.
Yeah,
It's like
that's
they
fine.
taste like protein shakes.
Yeah.
But the thing I like about it is that it's bland enough. If you get the vanilla one, it's bland enough where you could do anything with it. It's got 1/5 of your daily nutrition.
Beautiful.
And I mean,
Beautiful.
I like it. I'm trying. Like I was going to say
Beautiful.
before, like the thing I don't like about this whole stay-at-home thing is that I've turned fully embraced overeating as like
Oh
my
yeah, me
crutch.
too.
It's so easy. It's like, oh my God, there's food. There's enough people in my house where food is being prepared about 50% of the time.
And I'm getting creative in the kitchen. So I'm
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
just eat this, eat that.
Yeah,
Yep.
we're stuck at home with tons of food. It's not a good situation.
Not good. Yeah, it sucks. And I'm gaining weight, and I'm like, well, I'm in better cardiovascular and muscular shape now than I was 2 months ago.
Oh, that's good. I am not.
Court and I are, we have a 30-minute workout routine. I've been doing tons of yard work after work. I go out and I'm like building
Good.
stone walls and doing all sorts of stuff, like breaking into full
And
sweats.
hunting deer in the backyard.
Yeah,
That's right,
working with
yeah.
them around my shoulders. But the eating thing, I mean, when dinner comes, I'm like, I literally eyes roll into the back of my head, and I don't come conscious again until I'm overeaten by an order of 3. Like I'm just like,
Wow.
what happened? It's like,
You go into a different kind of world or state.
Yes,
and then
yes.
emerge from the state when you're ready.
it gets a little scary.
I've
I'm
been
eating
I've been
pretty mindfully, but I'm not working out. I think there's a human shaped indention in my couch now that was not there before all of this COVID stuff. Like
Yeah.
I am spending way too much time on my couch.
Yeah.
You
Way
got to
too
come
much
up with
time.
some. Yeah, we've
I
been
know.
walking every day for like 45 minutes to an hour up and down.
I
the
got to
hills
do that
around
more.
the
I
house.
walk my
It's
dog
important.
every day,
Yeah.
but I
So
really, I
important.
think I'm
You
going
really
to
have
do
to,
my
yeah.
couch to 10K again. I keep saying that, but I think it's time to like get back into running. I
Mm-hmm.
used to love it. And now that there's not really that many people outside in my neighborhood. When I do
Yeah.
walk my dog, I maybe pass by one person.
Yeah. I tell you though, I'm coming out at the end of this in better shape. There's like no
Yeah,
way.
that's a good
There's no way
idea.
I'm going to do an hour of cardio every day while I watch last season of American Ninja Warrior. If anybody spoils the ending,
Oh, wow.
I'll kill you.
What are you guys all binging? That's a good question. While you're
I
stuck
just
at
finished The
home.
Wire again.
Oh, that was a good show.
Yeah.
My wife and I are watching Rome again, and my God, was that a fantastic TV show?
Yeah, maybe we'll do that because we watched it when it originally aired, and it was great. We were very disappointed. Was it after the second season they dropped it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, well, they got I've read about it. I think they were saying that it was a very war heavy time where the story had ended
Yeah.
at, and they realized that they didn't just want it to just be about battle after battle after battle, and I
So
think it was-
instead, they produced Game of Thrones.
That
I
makes
feel
sense.
like
Excuse me one second.
the show holds up 100%. There's
Yeah.
no drop in quality at all.
We're watching Sabrina, the last season of Sabrina.
Teenage Witch?
No. This is Sabrina. What's the tagline, Steve? Sabrina.
The Teenage Witch.
It's no. For the Netflix show, the
Chilling Adventures of
Chilling Adventures of. It is dark as hell. It is fantastic. Mm-hmm. I'm just totally digging it. So I definitely recommend it. This is the third season. What else? Schitt's Creek ended beautifully. That was such a good show. Sorry to see that one go. I recommend that. Very funny.
We just finished the current season of Ozark, which is a really good show. The last season
I
was
couldn't
great.
get into Ozark. Should I try it again?
Yeah. And the
Okay.
last season was directed by I can't remember the guy's name, by one of the guys who directed The Sopranos. A lot of the episodes are very, very good. Personally, my wife is into it. Personally, I'm trying to complete the entire Deep Space Nine series. I just finished season 4. And it's 25 episodes per season.
Yeah.
So I just
Oh,
watched
back in
100
the day.
episodes.
Back in
they
the old
churned
days.
them out.
That's how The Wire was. It
I
was
know.
like
Yeah.
18
Good old
or
days.
22
It's
in
incredible.
an hour.
What
And
happened to
so let
that?
me
Why
ask,
is
how
that
many
gone?
guys here watched The Tiger King?
I
Oh,
haven't,
yeah.
but should I watch it or not?
I told you
can't-
guys to watch it. I watched it in 2 nights.
I
All
can't
right.
bring myself to
Don't get
watch
mad
it.
at me. I'm not.
How dare you?
I hated it.
Oh, everybody love hates it.
Because I
like-
actually think it's a terrible documentary, to be honest with you.
It's a terrible documentary about the most heinously interesting people you'll
Yes,
ever.
right.
Yeah, like
But it's
they're
not. I don't mind the
horrible
fact that these
people.
people are horrible people. That doesn't bother me. Because watching
what
a
they do
documentary
to tigers bothers me.
that
But
does. That does. Yeah,
the crazy thing is how many people come out of it hating Carol.
I know. Well, that's where I think that it's a horrible documentary.
Well, but it also explains American politics in a nutshell. So many people have said that, like, this explains the last election.
Oh,
right?
God,
Like,
I
if
have
you
to
see
watch
that, and then you watch how many people on the internet are like, that bitch Carol, you're like, oh, that's America.
But that's the thing. I felt so. First of all, I feel like they broke the covenant between, having been you two, Kara, been in front of the camera, like when they're doing B-roll and they're telling you, oh, do this, and you're having a conversation with them about what to do for B-roll, and then they show the
I love
conversation. Yeah, but that's like cheating. That's like seriously. There's an unstated assumption there that because you can make anyone look like an asshole
Of
if you
course.
show the process of doing the B-roll. I felt
that's
that was
the best
sleazy, but
part.
that was sleazy in my opinion. But
But Steve,
beyond
let me-
that,
A lot of people are doing that now, though, when it's like they'll introduce the character and the character's like, are you rolling?
yeah, I know, but I hate that. But the other thing is, that's just a cosmetic thing. But what I really hate is I really feel like they were manufacturing drama, and rather than giving us information, like the fact
There's
that
no information in this.
the
document.
fact that so many people come away from that thinking that Carol killed her husband and she's evil. It's like,
Or that she keeps tigers in tiny cages because they only showed the feeding cages. They never actually
Yeah.
showed the full enclosures.
they were not showing reality. That was a Jerry Springer reality show masquerading as a documentary, and I didn't like that. I didn't like
And
that.
a lot of biologists and conservationists were really pissed off because the star of the series was definitely not the tigers. And even though they give you niblets of the fact that like this is horrible and
Yeah.
should not be happening,
They give you little moments of that.
yeah, they could have been much more clear about the fact that like it is bananas that there are more tigers in captivity in the U.S. than in the wild. Like it's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, my
it's just-
worry
See,
is
we've kept them alive. Yeah.
how many people watch that show and go, "I want to have a tiger." I
Oh,
wanna own a
gosh.
tiger."
Donald Trump
Exactly.
Jr. did. Did you guys see that
Exactly.
clip?
Yeah,
Oh no,
Yeah.
did he really?
No, it wasn't Donald Trump Jr. It was what's her name? Trump's daughter's, Jared Kushner.
Jared
It's Kushner. Yeah, like they're watching, or maybe it was Don Jr. I can't
I
remember.
thought it
but
was
they're
Don
watching
Jr.
it. Yeah, it was Don Jr. You're
Yeah,
right,
he
and he
made
was
some-
like, what I got out of that was that it's only $3,000 for a tiger.
Yes.
Yeah.
that was Junior.
Like no,
That wasn't the
Wrong
takeaway.
That's
That
wrong.
wasn't the takeaway.
That's not what
Wrong
you're supposed to learn.
idea.
but I think what it is it's like so fantastic and it's so gripping that it like took people by storm because people are so anxious right now and they could literally forget about the world. It's one of those things that you cannot look away from. It's like the worst train wreck ever.
I mean, it was a peek into that world. I just can't trust anything that they. That's the thing. I walked away feeling I can't trust anything I saw in this documentary.
I didn't really look at it like it was a documentary.
Yeah, if you look at it like it's a faux reality TV, it's
It was
fine.
a reality
but
show.
The thing the most amazing thing to me, though, again, however real this is, was the guy who was basically using tigers to create a sex cult. Like
What?
he's luring women
You're
into
making
a
this
sex
up
cult.
now.
No, and they were saying that's
Jay.
pretty typical.
Jay,
Yeah.
Like that's why a lot of people have
furries
babies.
and Furbies or whatever.
No,
Yeah,
it's
they're-
the tiger cubs.
No, I get that. But
They're like
you
Tiger
interviewing the
cubs
women. It's
attract
like,
women.
why?
shouldn't be surprised when anyone is attracted to anything, usually as a sexual device.
Yeah, yeah.
People are sexually
Yeah.
attracted to all sorts
But the
of
tigers
things.
have power. So, like, they asked the women, like, why are you doing this? Why are you working 100 hours a week for almost no pay and sleeping with this old disgusting guy? And like, yeah, but the tigers, you get to be the tigers. You know, it's like that is really, disgusting. Again, to whatever extent
reminds
it's
me of
actually
that.
true, who knows?
Do you guys remember Sex Panther?
No.
No.
Come on.
I remember Chitara from the Thundercats.
Thundercats, I remember.
You guys have seen Anchorman, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ron
You
Burgundy.
don't remember that? What's his name? He uses Sex Panther cologne. They've
No,
done
I don't
studies, you
remember
know.
Is that
It
real?
works 60% of the time.
that.
You don't remember that?
60% of the time.
Every time. No, it's a special cologne. It's called Sex Panther by Odeon. It's illegal in 9 countries. It's made with real bits of panther, so you know it's good. You guys don't remember Sex Panther. It's
about
everything
right.
that Tiger King is.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
wow.
still sell it?
They're just
They
caricatures.
still sell it, yes. On Amazon, Bob Prime. Yeah.
Oh man. But it is funny that that's like what people are watching during the pandemic is the Tiger King.
Oh,
Should-
yeah.
Should we move on to another question?
Yeah, like Steve,
Sure.
which robot is this, Steve? This is in this is in Portal?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
Portal.
Yeah, that's Valve.
What-
Yeah.
Valve? What's his deal?
What's his designation?
So for Portal 2, they did have a multiplayer game, a 2-player game where you each play a robot
Yeah.
going through the tests.
You see this a surprising amount in robots when you buy them. One leg is shorter than the other. Why? Then
I
they
never
can't.
see
Then
that.
they can't stand up.
What do you mean?
Yeah, like 4 of my robots here are gimped because their one leg is shorter. No, I'm talking when you buy them.
That's a little known problem that prop
It-
robots have leg length
Yes.
disparities. We have to form a committee to investigate the leg length disparity among
This
toy,
dude,
toy prop robots.
I forget his name.
Which one, Bob?
Uh,
I don't recognize it.
oh,
He's
from
like the Disney. Was it?
oh, that's
From
Robot,
Robots.
the movie.
Robots.
The,
Yeah.
the movie Robots.
Yeah.
Robin
Yeah.
Williams voice?
Yep. Yeah.
Dead.
I should watch that again. I haven't seen that in a while.
Too soon?
I still think about him and
Yeah,
feel
it was
bad
so
about
sad, Robin
losing
Williams.
It
Robin
was
Williams.
really sad. Yeah.
I mean, the fact that it was a depression-based thing, and
Yeah.
And that he was such a national treasure, right? He brought joy to so many people.
What were his diagnoses? He had several issues, right?
yeah.
I mean, he was.
Well, I think medication was part of his.
Oh, yes. Definitely self-medication.
All right. What's the next question?
Well, someone was asking Carol, what does your arm tattoo say? And are you still knitting?
Which arm tattoo?
knitting.
Knitting and knitting.
That one. and knitting.
This one
Oh,
here.
it's so stuck in my head now.
Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Is that the Carl Sagan quote?
Nope.
I left my heart in Africa.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. I forgot
That's
you
what
had
that
that
one
one.
says.
Yeah.
I love Africa. And every time I leave, every time I visit, I want to stay. And every time I leave, I get very sad. And so I think after my second trip there, I think I got that tattoo. Maybe it was my second trip.
I wish someday I can go with you.
Oh, I would love that. You would fall in. It's magical.
Yeah, it's on the bucket list. Got to go to Africa at some point.
Yeah, and there's so many places to see. I'm slowly working my way through the continent, but so far I've really, really loved it. Southern Africa and specifically Namibia has been my favorite country to visit. But yeah, it's beautiful. The food is amazing. The people are wonderful. The wildlife is, it's the stuff that you learn about as a child. It's painted on your walls. It's the stuff of dreams. It's the stuff in your storybooks. And most people in the world have not been lucky enough to see an elephant, in the wild.
Yeah.
Mhm.
A lion in the
That's true.
wild. I saw a leopard, and it was a really, really special sighting because they're, if you live there, right, and you live on a game, or you're a gamekeeper, or something like that, like you're going to be more likely to see something like that. But it's actually quite a treat to be able to see a leopard in the wild in an area that's not like canned.
Yeah.
Which is gross. I don't like to visit
Discount
those
jungle
places.
safari.
Yeah, but most, you are gonna on safari, if you're going someplace that's ethical and like spending time with some local people, you will be lucky enough, depending on where you visit, to see some really incredible animals. You'll see a whole lot of springbok if you're in southern Africa.
So when are you
for
going
sure.
back?
When am I allowed to travel again?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's like, I don't know, when is it responsible?
So
I
yeah,
don't know.
we rescheduled our extravaganza and SGU live recording in Denver to April. I'm sorry, it was April. It was moved to October, and I am starting to worry about the October show a little bit.
Yeah.
It's still like
it's
we're
a
not.
little early, but yeah.
And nothing has been concluded.
Nope.
I
Oh
just
my God, yeah.
don't feel like we know what's going to happen.
We would have been going next week.
Jay, you know what
the-
23rd, April 23rd. Wow.
Jay, did you hear about the future of airline travel?
No,
It's up in the air.
bastard.
Actually, it's not.
Big yikes.
So Joe,
We don't need your comments. Ian.
Sorry.
We got it. We got it.
got it.
Also mention Nexus 2020 because if people don't know, it's online. But
yeah, Nexus 2020 is a online live streaming conference. So we took Nexus and we said,
We
okay,
compressed it. We put it in a box.
yeah.
And
So
then
what we decided,
digitized it.
we,
Yeah.
we knew that we wanted to do something, and we figured the only thing that we could guarantee is having a digital conference. So we're going to live stream it, and we're going to try some different formatting. We came up with some really cool ideas on how to. Well, first off, we want to shorten the talks from like 50 minutes down to a lot less than that. We want to shorten them up, and we want to have more discussion. And then we're going to have after every couple of speakers, we're going to have something that's like an icebreaker happen, something funny or something different, a mood change. And that's it. So we're going to, right now, the schedule is shaping up to go from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. So it'll be a full day of programming. We might even go a little bit longer, just depends.
Sure. Bonus.
And we're putting together the speaker list, and I'm very excited about it. And also we're beginning the deep dive on the programming of the live conference, the in-person conference that'll be happening in 2021, which is going to happen at Atlantic City. And I'm super psyched about that one.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want information on the digital conference, you can go to nexus.org and check out the website. You can sign up. We have early bird pricing up right now. Highly recommend that you give us your support, because it's going to be worthwhile, and it'll help us continue to let the conference exist.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a limit on the viewers, like number of viewers that can view it.
Yeah, so we could have
Somebody
10
was
million
asking that.
viewers.
Yes. So tell your grandmother.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. We have another question. Someone was asking, what do we think about hunting with children, with being the
They're
interesting
really
thing?
hard to
Hunting
hit
for
because they're so
children. Yeah,
small.
you don't lead
Not-
them as much.
Not hunting
They're
children,
very
hunting
fast.
with. Okay.
I,
Is there any
Well-
proven psychological issue with that?
You usually hunt with guns, not children, because the children don't fire things.
Do they mean bringing your children
Yes.
along
Yes.
to learn how to
Yes.
hunt?
Yes, that's what they
I
meant.
think it depends on, your
Ian.
culture, right? Like hunting is a big part of a lot of families. And I think if you're hunting ethically and you're, hunting safely, I think that it can be really smart for kids to come up learning about gun safety and learning about, where their food comes from. But if you're, of course, hunting unethically and you're hunting unsafely, then it's probably not a good idea to have children around. If you're drunk and you're trying to shoot things out of a moving vehicle or with a handgun,
Yeah,
maybe that's a
called
different
contributing to the delinquency of a minor. and
Exactly,
that's
but-
that's a crime.
Yeah.
But I think that, a lot of families hunt ethically, and most of those families, their children are a part of the hunting culture. I
Mhm.
grew up hunting when I was a kid, and I think that was a big part of being a Texan.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. And my grandpa and my dad, actually, more than anybody, when we used to kill a deer and we would hang it up to bleed it, he would take out its stomach, and we would open it up on my grandpa's workbench and look at the grass inside, and we'd do anatomy lessons with the eyes and stuff like that. And
Wow.
I don't know. I thought it was cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean,
fishing, right? It's very
Kara.
similar to fishing.
Kara, when you took the stomach out, was there stomach acid still in the stomach?
Well, it's so full. They're usually so full of grass, like they're swollen and like it's just this green mass of like grass and liquid. So probably, but I don't think it was so much so that it ever like burned. You could cut into it and look at it, but you wouldn't really stick your hand inside of it anyway because it's pretty stinky.
Bob's hoping for some scene out of Alien where it eats the forward decks of the ship or something.
I go downstairs quite often and visit with my mom, and
Mm-hmm.
subjects me to what she's watching on TV. And often, if it's not Chicago PD or if it's not one of the crime
Guiding Light?
procedurals,
Oh.
no, it's often My 600-Pound Life type thing, and so you see these really morbidly obese people, and they go through this process of losing weight, and then they have the surgery, and in the surgery, she's like, "Yeah, I saw the surgery. It was really disgusting." And they take the stomach out, and it was like this shriveled thing. And I'm like, well, what about the gastric juices? I mean, that's what's in the stomach. How could it be shriveled, especially if it's still like a living tissue? I don't know how it could.
Oh,
look
because
so
that's how
shriveled.
Well, stomachs, they have these rouge on the inside, so they look crazy on the inside. They look like backward
Rouge.
brains. Yeah,
Right.
that's how you absorb
Surface area.
nutrients, right? It's like
Right.
and so it like makes you have a lot more surface area in a small
Exactly.
space. But they stretch. So probably when they were taking their stomachs out, they were empty because it was a surgery. So they didn't eat for however long before.
Right,
Yeah.
but then what happens to the stomach acids?
I don't think you produce stomach acid more when you eat. Like there's like a whole thing where you eat in your food and it sends in your mouth, and that sends a trigger to your brain, and then you have the peristalsis, and you actually shoot stomach acid out when you do that.
Okay, because I thought when I was imagining that there's always like some base level of
There's
stomach
probably
acids
some,
that's just
right?
kinda like a little pool that's kind of like sloshing around a little bit.
Yeah, well,
I don't
so
think
maybe-
it's sloshing, because I think that like that would be not just wasteful, but you have to actually, Steve, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are fluids that you actually inject to neutralize these things. And so you wouldn't want just like burny acid just always hanging out.
So I mean, yeah, there
It
is always
makes
some
sense.
acid in your stomach, but I don't think like that graphic that you typically see of like a pool of acid
Yeah.
Right.
settling in the bottom of your stomach is
That's
is
not what's
accurate.
happening.
all right, but
But
what's happening
also-
during acid reflux? I mean, there
Yeah,
must be
there's-
some baseline.
There's some
of
acid in there. That's unfortunate, and usually the valve to your
valve's
esophagus
leaky
is
or something.
incompetent, so it leaks the acid up. So yeah, there is some acid in there, but also before surgery they drain it. Not only do you not eat, but they could also put
Right.
like a tube down there and just drain all the.
Ah,
They're
maybe
not
that's-
going to take
maybe
your
that's what
stomach out with
happens.
stuff in it, you know.
And
Yeah,
the inside
yeah.
of your stomach is really cool looking. Like look up
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah.
stomach rouge. I think
Since
that's
we're-
what they're called.
So we're talking about biology. I got to show you Jay. You will remember this. One of my favorite skulls. This is the top 3 skull. I bought this after our brother got married in '87. And what's really cool about it, it's metal. The detail is really good. The jaw works. You can hang it around your neck, which I never did. And one of my favorites is there's a hinge in the back. And like 30 years ago, I took some clay and I made a little brain.
That's 30-year-old clay.
Yeah, 30-year-old clay, and my little brain in the skull. So this is one of my favorites.
What color's the clay? What color's the clay?
It's like gray.
Gray matter. Got it.
Gray. Ah, very nice. So
Bob, you never cease to not be adorable to me.
I can't help it, Jay. You know, but there's so much stuff around me. I gotta like look at this. Isn't this cool? All right, I'm good. I'm good for 10 minutes now.
A couple people were asking about the hubbub about hydroxychloroquine.
So you can watch my new video all about hydroxychloroquine.
I watched it.
Yeah. If you're interested.
Penguin.
But the quick answer is penguin. Is that it's highly speculative that it would do anything. The preliminary data is actually there's one study that got all the hype is actually crap. It's just a horrible study. And there were 2 better studies which were negative. But still preliminary. So it's actually not looking good. If I had to guess, with the level of evidence that we have right now, I would say it probably is not going to pan out to an effective treatment. But we clearly need more definitive clinical trials to know.
So
But
what else is happening to the people who claim to have been taking it and have recovered? If that's not,
it's anecdotal, just worthless anecdotal information.
In other words,
Well,
if they
also-
took nothing, the same result would have had.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, people a lot of people recover from
Yeah.
this on their own.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah.
The other thing is there are a couple of drugs going into clinical trials for COVID-19 that are actually way more promising than hydroxychloroquine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it may not be too long, a couple months, few months, if they really fast track it before we, might be into like the definitive clinical trials. And I think it'll probably still be, 6 months to a year before those are approved, like where we have real evidence to know that they work. But they're trying to fast track these as much as possible. So they're already getting to like patients, much faster than they otherwise would have.
Good.
And that's great. And that would come well before a vaccine, because this would be a way, like HIV, like, oh crap, I've got it, but you're not going to die because we've got this treatment that will make it much more, much attenuated, briefer, and not much of a big deal. Maybe they bring it down to flu level or cold level.
Yeah, I mean, if you could get it to the point where they don't need to go on a ventilator, that would be huge.
Yes.
And where they don't
or they don't need to go into the ICU.
Don't need to go into the ICU. Yeah.
So even if it takes, even if it takes 2 years for a good vaccine, which just seems like so long, 2 years of something like this happening just seems horrible. They could come up with a treatment, a therapy that makes it like, okay, man, it's not a big deal if you get it. Bring it down.
How do they develop this?
0.001%.
Steve, do you know how some of the candidates were developed? Are they made from survivor? Like, are they using
So
plasma from survivors? Or...
Well, that's yet a different treatment, is the antibody treatments, right? So I'm talking about, there are a couple of drugs out there, and then there are the gamma globulin antibody, things that are also working on, basically just trying to like give you antibodies against the virus. But like one of the drugs is actually a migraine drug that has anti-inflammatory activity, because the receptor that it blocks is also a part of the immune system. It activates inflammatory cascades that could be causing some of the lung damage in severe COVID-19. So that will be starting patient trials fairly soon, for example. So that was it happened to be an existing drug. That that most of these are existing drugs that they're not starting from scratch, because that takes years, right? Starting from scratch.
Yeah, so it's like they're not being developed on a computer or something.
It's a drug that already has gone through the either it's already approved for something else, or it's already through all of the preliminary testing,
right?
And so we know that it's safe and blah blah blah, how to dose it, etc. But now it's just a matter of showing that there's clinical improvement with patients with COVID-19.
Isn't there some understanding or some speculation that part of the reason, because a big weird thing about COVID seems to be that some people get a little sick, some people don't get sick at all, and some people get so sick that they die, and like what's going on? And we know about pre-existing conditions, but is there some speculation about a cytokine storm that's sort of similar to the 1918 flu, where your immune system just goes haywire?
Yeah, so that is the thinking, that people get the cytokine storm thing at the end, which is when everything shuts down. That's the real end stage severe COVID-19. That's why they're trying to come up with drugs that may block that final inflammatory storm that really causes a lot of the damage. It's also why people could like be simmering along and think, I got a cold for 2 weeks, and then bam, they just get hit with like pneumonia and and things start shutting down, and they're instantly very
in like 2 days.
Ill. Yeah. Right, absolutely.
Steve, what do you think about iocane powder?
Well, if you slowly develop a resistance to it over time,
Princess Bride,
then you can use it safely, but it takes years.
Does it have an odor or a taste?
It's odorless and tasteless.
Gotcha.
Somebody was saying in the chat that their family member is taking hydroxychloroquine. What is it, Quinn?
They might have lupus.
But as preventative.
Yeah, that's a bad idea.
That is a
bad idea. First, again, the probability that they will harm themselves is probably orders of magnitude greater than the probability that they will actually, stave off what would otherwise.
They just had to cancel a small study, right? Because people were getting side effects out the wazoo.
Are there physicians prescribing this as a preventative?
The big side effect of hydroxychloroquine is that it actually alters the heart rhythm in a bad way.
Ooh.
And so, if you die from it, that's probably why, because it had caused a fatal heart rhythm. Also, like azithromycin and hydrochloroquine have that same side effect, which is always bad when the side effects line up. That's why the combination is like a particularly risky combination. So if you're taking it, you need to be under a doctor's supervision. First of all, they need to know that you're appropriate for it, that you don't have the risk factors, whatever, that would make it too dangerous. And then you need to be monitored, when you're on that medication. So yes, we can safely use it. It is being safely used by many people who have lupus, for example. It is a drug for autoimmune diseases. But if you're just taking it without being under doctor supervision because you think it's going to protect you from the COVID-19, you're just taking a huge risk with a very small probability of benefit. It's not a good idea.
And the dosage is probably, it's just, there's a lot there. That's scary. And you're taking drugs that have long been produced in a very particular quantity for the people that need it out of the hands of the people that need them.
You are taking that drug away from somebody who actually needs it for their lupus too. So it's a double whammy.
Not good.
All right, well, guys, I think it's time we put this next one to bed. Yes. So, guys, we want to thank you. We really appreciate our audience. We love interacting. You could always send us an email. We try to get through as many as we can, and we do answer some of those questions on the show. We'll be here next week.
Yes. We're reading all the comments, by the way. Every comment you're posting, we are reading them. Thank you for everything, especially about my bad jokes. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, especially about Evan's jokes.
Yes, and Killer.
Killer.
We will be doing this for an undetermined amount of weeks. We're doing this as a thank you to our listeners. So, to give you something to do, something to look forward to. And we really do enjoy it. And we love looking forward to it as well. And I love seeing into Bob's lair. I have to admit.
You guys like my den?
I do, but Steve, Steve,
is it fully operational?
Palpatine, baby.
Steve, before we close the stream down, can you just say goodbye and walk away?
Because the emperor's left behind.
Yes, I want everyone to see what's behind you because it's so awesome.
Bye, Steve.
See you later, Steve.
Bye, Steve.
Bye, Steve. Hang on, everyone. Don't go anywhere.
That's actually Steve. All right, you can come back, Steve. So anyway, guys, thank you. We'll see you next week. And don't forget about Nexus. And don't forget about the extravaganza and the live taping in Denver in October. We'll see you soon.
Very cool.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
I'm looking at you.
Thank you.
I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at you.
Yes.
Oh, I don't know why I stopped my video.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Recording.
Ian?
Yeah.